What is buffer time? What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
Are you ready to rock out with your Spock out? Well, if you are, today we're talking about Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. But before we get into that, let's go around clockwise and introduce ourselves. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
I am Scott from Opinions No One Cares About, and as you can see from my name, I'm going to blow this shit up.
Robbie Sherman from Conversations with Robbie Sherman.
I'm Josh from Windgrace, and I found Spock after the pond farm.
No.
Rough. My name is Vanessa, and I host a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
Wonderful. Yes, Nadia, let's get our Spock on. Hold on just a second. Robbie, if it's possible when you're not talking, if you could mute, you got some weird background. You got like a big rainstorm going on where you are or something?
Is it raining?
No, not really, but I understand. It's okay.
Yeah, because as soon as you mute, it's gone, and it sounds like somebody's either taking a shower next to you or like you are out in the rain, sir.
It's in the rainforest section.
Genesis. Right there.
All right. You have a
Hello,
new super
Nadia.
fan,
Hello.
Vanessa? And Norman, we haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, so great to see you again.
Yeah.
Norm.
Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, is reusing scenes from Khan at the beginning cheesy or a good way to catch the audience up?
Might be a good thing because there might have been, I don't know, 2 or 3 people who, for whatever reason, didn't see the movie before this. Mm-hmm. Just kind of the studio covering themselves in case somebody came along and was like, what was the point of it? Like, why did this happen?
And aside from a recast, which I'm sure we'll get into, it pretty much did need to follow on directly from what just happened. They're limping home. The ship was still damaged. So it was actually nice to see a continuation and not just be a fresh start. But the postage stamp thing was a little odd, though, the way they did it in like the little shrunken part in the middle of the screen. I'm not sure about that choice. But...
Yeah, and it starts in black and white and just gradually becomes color too.
Like Wizard of Oz or something. Mm-hmm. I guess that they were in Kansas and now they're in Oz, whatever. I think like this movie was trying to spoon feed the plot as much as possible. Like they called it Search for Spock in the trailer that when Grace sent everybody. They wanted to show the Enterprise crashing. Like they're trying to spoon feed people as much as possible. Because personally, I think the captain's log that Kirk gives kind of fills us in on what's happening, that Spock has died. And also, but I guess like it was such an impactful scene, they have to replay it, It does kind of suck the weight out a little for me, the gravitas of that scene, to replay it in flashback quite in that way. But I guess you kind of have to in case, like when Grace said, if somebody hasn't seen it.
Well, it also leapt out to me that if they hadn't done that and a couple of the other little vocal cues, we wouldn't have had any Nimoy in this thing for a long time. So it might have been a way to keep him in mind as well.
That's a good point.
I would think like a good way of including him could have been looking at his video will instead of having the flashback or whatever. Just a thought.
Then he could have filmed new content, yeah.
Could have been for an emotional hit too. Saying, "Oh, we saw this. We got this scene. Made a lot of people cry. I'm not gonna say whether I did or not. Let's show it to him again."
Let's just make sure we artistically cut around Kirstie Alley.
I didn't cry at the beginning of this one, always at the end of it. Does anybody else, or at least maybe the first time you saw it, cry when the Enterprise crashes into Genesis, though?
I don't. I don't know if I did, honestly. I just thought it was kind of awesome.
I definitely did the first couple of times I saw it.
Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah, as much as this is my favorite variant of the Enterprise, as the original Enterprise, I wonder if it would have had more impact if it was actually the one from the show. Not that they could have really brought that in. Like when the D blew up in Generations, that was still the same ship we followed for so long. We only really had 32-minute glory shot in the motion picture and then the Wrath of Khan with it. So it's not quite as long lived, even though it is the same ship.
I feel like I had a good relationship with that ship in the least, you know. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I just grow attached to things that are hollow and vapid and don't amount to
I'm
much
attached
at
to
the
it
end
too.
of the day.
I just feel like it didn't quite have the same emotional impact as if it was actually the original ship.
Yeah.
It is my
Right.
favorite version.
I just loved seeing like the flames coming out of the windows. Like it was very detailed. It didn't feel like slapped together or anything. It felt like it was really falling to earth, and they really wanted you to take it in, the loss of this ship and the sort of moving into the new era.
A fun thing I learned this week researching this movie was that this shot here, where it like everything blows up and out, they actually shot the model upside down, blowing it up, so it would look like, you know, going up and out in this bigger explosion than it really was. What's going on with the passage of time in this movie? Most of the crew have been reassigned, but they're just making it back to space dock, and David and Savick are already on the Genesis planet. And there's some weird like discontinuity about the time in different bits of dialogue, especially towards the beginning. Probably chronotons.
Also, is Kirk called Admiral anymore, or is he just Captain now?
That is interesting because they do mention later on that if he does this, he'll never sit in the captain's chair again.
Yeah.
As if he's just back to captain now.
Oh, that's a good point.
I also think they retired the Enterprise just a smidge, like, quick. Like, you know, maybe give it a week, you know, just talk it over. Like, come on.
Well, that's another time discrepancy. When they say that the Enterprise is 20 years old or whatever.
It's closer to 40.
Yeah.
I guess like when a mission's over, it's that quick, especially Enterprise crew. They kind of want to get like the top of the line crew out on new assignments as quickly as possible. So I could totally see them going to like a star base or just getting beamed off into another ship that needs them more urgently, because all they're doing is flying back. So I can understand that, but I do wonder about like the seeming demotion from Admiral to Captain. How quickly that happened is odd.
Yeah, well, they weren't even really assigned in the last movie, weren't they? Just kind of there for the training shakedown cruise, and then everything hit the fan anyways.
That's right. They had both.
Like Chekhov
Yeah,
wasn't even
they're
on
still
the crew, they just picked
trainees.
them up.
Yeah, they're still trainees, so they had to get off.
You know, Nadia, I hadn't thought about it until we did Motion Picture a couple weeks ago. I was like, oh God, both of the main actors from Seventh Heaven were in Star Trek
and only
movies.
one we want to see again.
I hadn't thought about that before.
Del, you're going to have to be patient.
No, we haven't got there. Don't worry. That's kind of a big topic. We are going to get there. Before we get too far into like the real serious stuff, I just want to point out of the nacelle figures that are coming out and are on pre-order right now, I think Valkyris is my favorite, and I definitely want this. Because she comes with the Genesis device and the Genesis control panel and stuff, and, you know, Klingon boobs. She is just absolutely amazing.
And 4 sets of hands?
They all come with multiple hands, and some of them come with multiple heads.
What?
I don't think Livingston comes with multiple hands. But...
It's a lot of doodads for a character that's on screen for all of like a minute, but that's pretty rad.
It is. Yeah, a couple like the one for Crewman Preston from the last episode. He comes with like the extra head where it's all bashed up and bloody and stuff. So that's pretty cool. So yeah,
See,
they have a few characters with seconds.
I want her blown up, like a blown up version.
Customized.
Amen.
I mainly want this for the Genesis device, but for a character that gets seconds of screen time, she's pretty cool. Anyway, back to this movie. Is Scotty the original inventor of buffer time by inflating his timetables by a factor of 4?
Oh God, buffer time pioneer. I love that beautiful boy Scotty, working man. You know, he took whatever buffer time he could get because he knows that being relaxed, you do better work. You're always going to do better work, and then you're going to get it done quicker anyways, and you're going to look like a champ. Like God bless him.
I like the 2Vix one too.
Some assembly required. It is interesting, yeah. They never really retconned it. They didn't really have Trip do it. They didn't really have anyone on Discovery do it. So timeline-wise, he still might even be the first.
Following up on that Scotty question, why does Scotty hate the Excelsior so much? Shouldn't he appreciate the engineering?
New things bad?
I mean, when he was on the Enterprise D, he immediately was like, I want to go to the holodeck to go to the original bridge. He has a very deep connection with the Enterprise. It's like Enterprise superiority. Enterprise are nothing.
No, he's in love with the Enterprise. You know, the way like weird men fall in love with motorcycles or losers like me fall in love with guitars.
I mean, I get that he likes the Enterprise more, but he makes these offhand remarks that he doesn't like the Excelsior several times in this movie. Like, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a wagon.
It might just be too automated, like takes away from the manualness of having to do stuff. It's just, especially with the turbo lift, started talking to him. He's like, "Oh, up your shaft." Like, it's just too newfangled.
Both of those lines were such killer Scotty material. I love sassy Scotty. It makes me proud. It does my heart good.
Now, this is after the Admiral there, Morrow, says that the Enterprise is going to be decommissioned. And it could be he's looking at all of it through the lens of, how dare you put my girlfriend out of service like that?
Should be hauled away as garbage.
You've been working on that one a while, Josh?
Yeah, about 3 weeks.
Maybe give it 3 more.
Okay.
So
I'll do it again before Generations.
How does Kruge as a villain compare to Khan?
I was thinking this whole time, I really like Kruge as a villain. He does. Blew up his girlfriend.
Like, I don't find his
Blowing up.
motive. Whoa, Scotty is.
That was weird.
Yeah, Scott, you're lagging pretty bad. I'm sorry. Dude.
I'm sorry. I just didn't really understand Kruge's motivation nearly as well as I did with Khan. Like, Khan's reason for going after Kirk was very clear. Whereas with him, I'm not entirely sure what he hopes to accomplish once he gets the Genesis device. Is it just, oh, I have a problem with the Federation having this weapon and that's it? Am I going to use it for conquest? Maybe
Yes.
there's something I missed.
I think it's both. I mean, he doesn't want the Federation to have it, and at the same time, he wants Klingon superiority having it. You know, I think he's looking to like increase his status within the Empire by, taking out Kirk and gaining the Genesis device. That's the sense I get.
Right.
As far as villain comparisons, I mean, he's not as good as Khan as a whole, but man, Christopher Lloyd does nail it and really sets the tone for Klingons going forward.
This was a good middle ground, yeah, between what came before and what we eventually get. A little weird stuff by like him being a lord, referred to as a lord and stuff like that.
Yeah, in general, this one seems to paint the Klingons more like a monarchy. I mean, Valeris seems more like a Klingon princess or something.
Yes, I agree with you, Nadia. The makeup is unnecessary. You don't need to be that color. And there's also white Klingons, so it's like it's just BS that they're this color. But I do think that like, but the thing is like a weapon of mass destruction for a Klingon is a really interesting choice because I guess because we don't have the established lore in TNG about how Klingons approach battle and how much it means to them quite to the degree as in TNG, like that's not quite established yet. With this, it's like, yeah, you'll have the glory, but you're not going to be really respected because it's a weapon of mass destruction versus like hand-to-hand combat.
I think it paints a little bit of madness into his character. Like he's hungry for power on a Shakespearean level. And I like the performance. It has certain touches that make it very intense and outward in a way a Shakespearean performance would be. I don't think this performance will ever be remembered in the way other Chris Lloyd performances, namely his Back to the Future and Roger Rabbit performances, will be remembered for. But he's definitely giving it his all, and I think he does have personality throughout it. It's not a problem with his performance. I think there are outlying things that are working against him as a villain with presence compared to the previous villain.
Mm-hmm. I do enjoy the fact that they didn't.
Go ahead, Scott. And you're lagging again. I'm sorry, dude.
I like the fact that he was a change up insofar as he wasn't specifically holding any sort of animosity or grudges personally with any of our characters. He was more of a
sure.
He came into the situation, figured out what Genesis is, was trying to, from his point of view, probably safeguard his own people from what could be the end of his civilization with either a doomsday weapon or even that one scene where he's talking about like, oh, you're gonna make a new planet and sit on the porch with your grandkids running around under your feet. So either it's going to be used against them as a doomsday thing or just way over increase the, I guess not really the land mass, but the area that the Federation has to utilize. So either way, it's not going to end well for them. They'll either be conquered or pushed out in their own territory.
His death reminded me of Gul Dukat's death at the end of DS9 for sure. Like it has that sort of tone of like, it's either you or me, and we're getting out of here, but only one of us is coming out of here, kind of thing. I really enjoyed the fight scene, even though it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, like Kirk flipping.
Oh, oh God. That fucking rock that pops up and just like throws Chris Lloyd.
Well, as we all know, Shakespeare was Klingon originally, Nadia.
Yeah, I do think Christopher Lloyd really does a great job of being the sort of dominating Klingon that would, declare war against Kirk. I think it was a nice bridge between TOS Klingons and TNG Klingons for sure.
I just want to say, ever since Christmas, I've had a meme on as the background of my laptop from this scene where it's just him kicking Scrooge off, but it's with the words from A Christmas Story. It's like, I just want the Red Ryder BB gun, and like, you'll shoot tryout, kid. It's really great.
Oh
Something I
my
did-
god. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say something else I appreciated about him as a character, and maybe this is more speaking to what Hollywood has become since this movie, but there wasn't any like moral wrangling of I'm going to kill somebody, no, and there was no like back and forth. He's like, I'm going to kill somebody, and then he did kill somebody. Like there was no hemming and hawing around it. He just went for it, and then he wasn't apologetic for it, but you could see the look on his face briefly when he found out it was Kirk's son. He's like, uh-oh. Oh well.
I love how.
Go ahead, Robbie.
Go ahead. I just want to say I love how quick all the death stuff is, and then Kirk's right back into kicking ass mode. Like he slips off of his chair in disbelief, and then he like gets up and he just keeps going. Like, oh man, like what an intense performance in a weird way. Like just funny stuff, honestly.
Yeah, I was never clear in this scene whether the comm is still open. Does he actually tell the Klingons that he killed his son, or is he just talking to himself in the bridge? I always assumed that the comms were closed, but he very easily could have tipped Scrooge off.
I thought maybe I'm misremembering a different scene, but I thought it was open because wasn't there a scene after that where he says, and then there's still two more people if you want someone else to die. Did they continue the conversation, or did they rehail them later?
Unclear.
I thought Sarek said and pretty plainly, like, hey, your son is dead.
I thought
Well,
she
yeah,
said
no.
I think she said David is dead.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, speaking of Savick and tying into comparisons, how does Robin Curtis's Savick compare to Kirstie Alley's?
She went more stereotypical Vulcan, I guess. More like a detached than Kirstie Alley's slightly more emotional take on the character. Although they did a little more emotional stuff later on, so.
It's interesting because I actually thought the opposite. Because this one seems a lot more emotionally intelligent, much more closer to Tendi. Doesn't just give rote recitations of Starfleet protocol or anything. Seems to be present in a way that Savick in the previous movie wasn't. This one seems much more experienced than the Savick in the prior one. Like the one in the prior movie was like super green, super just everything by the book and nothing else. This one was much more instinct driven, much more willing to like keep going in search of, the life signs, and kept pushing the captain in a way that I think the previous Savick would never. So I thought that was really interesting.
I would actually take a position in between the two of you. I'd say that this one feels more like a classic logical Vulcan, but she's learned some stuff. Where what I thought was a really interesting dynamic was when she's like trying to get the captain to do something, and the captain's like, no, we're going to do this by the book. And she's like, well, okay. And she's like, it's like she learned from the events of Star Trek 2 that it's okay to go outside the confines of the rules, but at the same time, Robin Curtis feels like she plays Saavik more like a traditional Vulcan.
Is still lagging?
No, not right
I think
now.
you're good.
Oh, good.
That's better.
Good.
Yep.
Because what I really wanted to say for this one in particular, after watching it this time, there was something in me that wanted me to have them have a reason to keep bringing Saavik back in subsequent movies, but always introducing a new actress to play her. I just thought they had a chance to do something really funny there.
That would have been interesting.
Honestly, I would love that so goddamn much. You have no idea. I'd make little
Danny
cuts of
DeVilla
that.
Saavik.
Oh man, they could have got Arnold to do it the next year and then made it a twins promotion.
Ooh.
Like,
We're just bringing everyone from
Oh, love
Taxi
it.
eventually.
like I don't know how Star Trek 2 Kirstie Alley Saavik would have been able to handle a maturing Spock. Like how to be present with him in the same way and guide him through the difficulties of Vulcan puberty.
It is time.
Oh, yeah. Is it time?
Oh my god.
Do we want to get to that? Because, like, my question is just the Ponfar scene. Why? Why?
Because they couldn't get away with an actual sex scene. It had to be alien and weird looking.
So
You can totally deal with the overflow of Vulcan emotion just by touching tips.
Oh.
I just thought like they had to put a line in there for her to say that it's every 7 years once they reach adulthood. So it's an adult. Like they really made sure to say that. But did it have to, like, I thought it would have been nice to just, teach him how to center his emotions, because I thought that was the point of that scene, was just like, hey, we're Vulcans, we're all about meditations and centering ourselves and grounding ourselves. Like, this is a skill you have to master in order to, live as a Vulcan in general. But why center it around Ponfar? I don't know.
I mean, I get, like, the whole Vulcan, like, oh, you're gonna, like, die if you don't Ponfar, but I don't think we had even introduced, oh no, I guess we did introduce it in Amok Time. But my God, to me, this is the worst scene in at least the TOS movies, if not all of the Star Trek's movies. It's weird, it's uncomfortable, like, and I love a good sex scene or even a good innuendo, and this is not it. To me, it's not good. It's so weird and bizarre.
Like, this is a feral person. It's a feral person. It's taking advantage.
And it's also maybe one of the goofiest fucking things I've ever seen in any like sci-fi franchise ever. Like, and I've watched a fucking shit ton of anime, and like, oh my word, like the amount of effort that went into crafting some terrible, terrible things I have been witness to compared to this fucking junk, like with just like big googly eyes and people touching hands, like holy shit, this is dumb. Like I don't know, like I mean, people have like hand fetishes, right? Is this a fucking writer like getting all like crazy with the hands, like over like some age play crap? Like what is this junk? I hate this scene.
Did they address it at all?
It's some writer who knows that Vulcans do this and was like, what else those hands do?
What was your question, Josh? I'm sorry.
But did they address it at all in the commentary as to like the scene at all?
Not really. No.
They just
Not
let that
enough.
slide.
Shocker, Spocker. Anyway, I'll stop.
No need to invite litigation of any kind for sure. It's a commentary. It's a fun time. We're not going to worry about the
All right,
problems.
so I didn't have this as a question, but I think it begs it, even though like this is technically part of the next movie.
Who begged for
If
it?
they had actually shot the scene and kept in what was in the original script about Savick being pregnant with his child because of this Pon farr, would it have been better? Would it have made more sense? My answer is still no. It would have been even more disgusting.
Oh, okay. No, you know what? That's what this movie needs is like a little like alien style Pon farr baby like growing too fucking quick and bursting out of her body like a chest burster. Like, that would be fucking amazing.
But then that's Leonard Nimoy. So they don't put his Katra back in himself; they put his Katra in his son.
I agree, Nadia. Yeah, he looks like a 19-year-old, and it's really really creepy.
Well, I
and
mean,
gross.
he's I think he's supposed to be 14 here, but maybe I'm
no.
wrong and it's 21 because I always assumed it was 14 because like every 7 years, but I don't know. Maybe it starts at 21 because that would be, I guess, at least permissible.
Well, it's also
But
the
yes,
Genesis planet.
it doesn't
Yeah.
look right.
Wait 5 minutes and it'll be 30. So
Why doesn't anybody but here's the question we didn't have also. Why doesn't anybody else age but Spock? Why is it only Spock that's aging weirdly?
He has a connection to the planet the others don't. Don't you understand, Dustin? He is a child
Yeah,
of the
that
planet.
that seems to be the truth.
probably the chronotons
Yeah.
that he was flooded with in engineering.
I think it just has to do with the fact that he was put there at the nexus of like when this planet was born, and so him and the planet are one in terms of their life cycle. Like the pain of agony that he goes through as he's growing up is the same as the planet. So it's a weak connection. I agree. It would have been really cool if they had like there's episodes in TOS
We're
where they
cycling
grow really
together.
grow old really fast, and that would have been funny.
Okay, I want to bring it up. How do we feel about that moment where he's like aging rapidly and his jaw is extending? Like, I don't. Is that how jaws work as you get older? I don't think it fucking is.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
He's
cool to watch.
He's a
I always
member of
thought
the
it was some weird
Copper blood-based
prosthetics.
human.
he's a member of the Habsburg family, apparently.
But speaking of which, did you guys all watch that Otoy thing where they brought Kirk back like a couple months ago? Because that
Unfortunately,
No.
they brought Robin Curtis back for that too, and they canonized they did have a son. He was in it.
Oh, okay.
Not that it was technically canon because it wasn't made by Paramount, but
Right.
I don't like
Oh,
it. I don't like
oh
it.
wow. Oh wow. I'm so happy to know Kirk got another round in. Good for him. Hey.
no,
Who
not
cares?
Kirk. It was Spock and
Spock.
Spock and
Spock and
Savick.
Savick.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk
okay.
about this a little bit more next week when we get to the scene where she's standing with Spock's mom and stuff. But
Point is, he got another round
if
in.
you recast her, there's no point.
I mean, it was nice to see Sarah. come
I
back.
just really hate the idea of Savick being knocked up by Spock. I hate it. Anyway,
I agree. So on the theme of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it make a lot of sense for your lock code, your auto destruct code to be 000s and a whole bunch of 1As and 2Bs?
Or not two Bs.
amazing.
Okay, you know what? I wasn't a computer coder alive in the 80s, so I have no real experience to draw from as far as what password standardization went by then. Yeah.
Well, if Scotty was entering it,
I'm guessing because they need to be able to easily recall it. But and I can't imagine a crew member would be like, I wonder what the self-destruct heat sequence is. Let me go ahead and put it in and try it out. Like,
yeah, I feel like the command authorization, was it 3 in this one? They had 3 senior officers had to authorize it as well. I feel
Yep.
like that's more important than the actual code.
So an interesting thing that they definitely wouldn't have been aware of when they wrote this movie, but has come out in more recent years, the code, like, if you've ever seen the beginning of the movie War Games, where they like are testing the launch controllers in missile silos, and they like send them these code, they send them and they have to break open the codes and stuff. Um, until the early 80s, every launch silo's code was 5 zeros, so that it couldn't be screwed up. Um, no, and very few people knew that, because it was like locked away until like you had to open it, and then it would be like, oh, it's just 5 zeros. But I do find it interesting that it has a real world analogy, even if we didn't know it at the time.
Star
That's
Trek
the
always
combination
predicting
on my luggage. Okay. Does the Vulcan resurrection ritual scene go on too long?
It does feel like people were walking out of the theater to get to the bathroom early during all this. Like, man, it does feel a little slow and reverent in a weird way. I like the music for it. It's very good with the scene. James Horner is doing his job.
I feel like I'm in the minority. That like this wasn't nearly long enough. Like it just
Oh.
was sort of like the ritual itself is just okay, I'm sticking my hand on both of your heads and voila. Like there's I was really interested in this part because like what are these three women's function exactly? You
They
know?
do say that it's like a mythological thing at this point. Like it's been
Right.
so very rarely done that they have
Mhm.
like almost hardly any record of it anymore
Mhm.
happening. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, like when they have to cut away and do like a montage style thing, that it's too much. I feel like it goes on at least a couple minutes too long. It's not as bad as the ship pee from the motion picture, but I think it drags a little bit.
Like
I'm
they
wondering.
could have like had more sort of gesticulations or, uh
Chanting.
recitations or something.
So
Uh
some more lights, some like
yeah,
fun little special effects. They had
yeah,
all those great transporter lights, so if they
Little
could do that for
truck.
right.
the transporter, they
It
could
it
do that for
it
that.
was like it was really anticlimactic to me for it just to be like boom and you're done and it's fine and he's back. Like that's it.
I guess we pulled it off. Not a big deal. We just did a mythological like ritual that people haven't done in hundreds of years, probably.
Yeah, they made the big deal of this could kill you, Bones, and then just took a little snooze and he's fine.
Okay, can I bring it up now? Like, how do we feel about the like Spock being in Bones' body, like subplot? Does that have weird overtones for everybody? Like,
I mean, I guess it was the logical choice outside of Kirk as far as
Hmm.
characters they could have chosen to do it with.
I
But
mean,
I
I think
think
it's.
oh, go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Vanessa.
Sorry. Oh, I was just gonna say it makes perfect sense for him to be in Bones to put, for lack of a better way to put it, because Bones dislikes on a surface level Spock, and by risking his life for Spock, it solidifies their bond. There's a scene in here where he says, "I miss you." He confesses that he has a very close connection and relationship with Spock, and I thought that this was a beautiful way to express it. And yes, like when he comes out and says like it's not logical to put poison in your body when he goes to a bar is really funny. I think it's a wonderful feature in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of perfect, and I wouldn't say that, but oh, not sure what happened to Scott. Um, I wouldn't say that I think Bones dislikes Spock. I mean, yes, he always makes these jabs at him, but I've always felt like they're like fifth graders talking to each other, kind of. Okay. Let's try that again. I've always felt like it was like fifth graders taking pot shots at each other, kind of jabs. And he
Yeah.
really, truly respects
Like
him.
frenemies.
Yes. Well, not even so much frenemies, just, sometimes with your best friends, you'll talk down to them, but it's truly a meaning of affection
Right.
behind it.
Because
Yeah.
he does call him like a green-blooded son of a bitch when he realizes that it's Spock inside of him. So it's like,
Didn't get
yes,
married.
it's affectionate, but it's also a very brash affection.
Occasionally, I do need a friend who just cuts through the crap about things, and I like that they kind of have that like real hard relationship between each other. I also just feel this is a little tropey. There's a Denzel Washington movie that comes out within a few years of this, where he's like a jazz musician who gets put in the body of a racist cop, and it just like feels funny and sitcom-y in a certain way to me. Like it does make sense on a dynamic level, but I also think the racial overtones of it put in like weird like trope stuff.
Is that guy the rock biter from the Neverending Story? Like, he looks very familiar.
Yeah, I threw this up because while we were talking about Bones, I just wanted to throw in that like I absolutely love this alien. We don't get like dialects from different races much in Star Trek. It's always through the lens of the universal translator, and I really really like this alien. I think he's pretty cool. Dear, and we're acting up again.
And on that note,
Yep.
I love
he's
Streamlabs.
definitely
Hell of a buffer time.
memorable
We're
part of it.
we're buffering so gall darn hard. Streamlabs can't handle it. Don't remember this alien? It's this great scene in the bar where
Yeah.
Bones is trying to charter a
Spoiler.
flight to Genesis, and this guy he almost has the inflections of a Yoda.
Yeah, this is
It's-
a very
I love it a
Wars
lot.
section.
Who is the gentleman that Kirk is told no? Like they see him in the bar trying to charter a flight, and this gentleman comes up and says no to Bones, that he can't do this. They can't go to
Starfleet
Genesis.
Security, I think.
Okay. Starfleet Security tells Bones, but the guy who
Yep.
tells Kirk is like his superior or something.
Fleet Commander Morrow.
Fleet
Yeah.
Commander Morrow, right. And he says something to the effect of like, I don't really get this Vulcan mysticism, which is a really interesting thing for him to say, because it's like, this is like the first member of the Federation, and he's unaware of that unaware of Vulcan mysticism. Like, it really speaks to like, people might get into Starfleet not giving a damn about certain aspects of what they're getting into.
I mean, 100 years later, none of the admirals were comfortable with Cisco being into Bajoran mysticism either.
There's also in the beginning of Enterprise, the mind meld is a taboo, which is interesting.
Yep.
So I guess at this point it's still like, it's woo-woo BS stuff.
So still in that bar scene, I just want to point out two things. This costume on the waitress, absolutely amazing. And the security dude that ends up taking Bones into custody, like, he reminds me a lot of Lando Calrissian.
I love his performance, actually. For such a small part, it makes a big impression.
This is
entire section is very Star Wars.
this is very Drag Race Maxi Challenge sewing challenge to me. Like, I don't know
It's pretty epic.
what the theme would be, but I do like the lights. I do wonder
like
what Dell has to say.
in Trek Culture's been doing their ups and downs for all of the movies, and they're like just a week behind us. And Sean Farrick had said, like, I really want to see somebody do this costume as a cosplay sometime. And I agree with that. And maybe I'll be the one to make it, but I'm not going to be the one to wear it. And Del, I would love to hear more from you. Also, you've been asking to be a moderator in the chat for months. I made you a moderator.
Walk right away.
Anyway,
With great power, Dill. With great power.
Speaking of great power, Genesis.
Okay.
Religious conversion.
Who is converting? Oh, do you mean like Bones becoming Vulcan religious? Is that what you mean, Del?
I think maybe more like joining Starfleet, you have to adopt a less mysticism sort of mindset and just, I was going to say pure logic, but that doesn't really track either. Just more scientific and lose all the other stuff. But then look at all the times somebody evolved into a god in the original series, so they should have some leanings.
I don't understand what you're saying. I don't know what a Voodoo. Anybody?
I think it's practitioner of voodoo,
Oh, okay. All right.
but I don't actually know things.
Okay. What's the max amount of times a character should be able to come back from the dead? Let's talk about the Black Mountain.
I forgot to tell you before we ever did this. I was hoping you'd find that GIF of Spider-Man from Family Guy going, "Everybody gets one."
That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite Family Guy jokes too, Scott.
I definitely think Data's pushing it. Shax has come back once. Data at least twice.
Maybe we should give that a 3-time rule. You know, if you spread it out far enough between them, just to give it impact.
Is like resetting the timeline count, or does it have to be actual?
Okay.
They died individually and came back.
That's a good point. Can we
No,
play
I
by
mean-
Dragon Balls?
Not a split in the timeline that you just sort of reverse. I'm talking about like just prime timeline, same guy. How many times does it get to come back?
This is getting into Dragon Ball Z territory. Like Goku dies like 5 times, and they bring him back somehow.
You should have logged in.
I mean, maybe it depends how long running it is. Like if you've got 7 seasons, then you're in 6 movies, then you come back, you know. But I mean, maybe once you get past 2, I feel like it's a little less credible.
Oh, he did and came back again. Huge surprise. He gets cliche.
I
You're a
still think
traitor.
Hemmer
You're sorry,
should
Mark.
come back. Yeah.
I think
Hemmer
they
should
shouldn't have
come
had
back.
him jump off that ledge. They should have just had him walk into the storm and leave it open-ended.
I wish he would have stepped back from that ledge, my friend, too.
You should just cut ties with all the lies.
They'd been limited. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Not good to lie to yourself.
Elnor, who was that? Did he get any
Because
screen
like
time?
I do wonder what it would have been like if Spock just stayed dead. If that was just the end of Spock and that was it. Would they still keep making these movies, or was this really necessary to like bring it back? Because I don't know. Like
They wouldn't have had a story.
There's kind of a behind the scenes answer to that. As I understand it, Shatner had a clause entered into his contract called the Favored Nations Clause, which basically guaranteed when they made a Star Trek movie or any other project, he and Nimoy would be paid the same amount of money, because he was sure that like they could go on without Kirk, not so much that they could go without Spock, which in the end is how Final Frontier got made, because Nimoy directed the 2 movies before it.
And it wasn't just money, it was concessions, and that's how we ended up with him directing Star Trek V. Though, you know, honestly, I'm not sure anybody could have saved that piece of shit.
I don't know, maybe Tommy Wiseau.
Saving Tommy Wiseau. Those words, they don't go together in the same sentence, friend.
oh, hi Spock.
We've got a special guest joining us. Hello, Del!
Hello.
Oh,
Ooh.
Can't hear you.
Oh, don't start off muted. Come
Oh
on.
no. Oh no. We're off to a bad start.
It's dramatic effect.
I think
We
I'm
can't
getting
we
echo
can't not
somewhere.
hear you.
All right, who didn't reroute power to the comms?
Up your shaft.
I couldn't get auxiliary power routed. Maybe now?
Damn it!
Maybe not. No.
Wait,
I
Wait.
heard a little like crackle.
yeah,
Better? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 Verizon is alive and well.
Oh, there
Go.
is lag upon lag, though.
Only when you first talked. You should.
What do you mean?
From where I'm sitting, you look fine.
Okay.
Your mouth is syncing up. Go ahead.
Okay. The point I was trying to make, and maybe I'm just not making it very well. It's so weird. I can hear myself halfway through a sentence. Was the idea of people outside a certain race, in which a spirituality comes from that racial identity.
Okay.
Oh.
That it's a question, like I said, like a white guy who wants to become a Houdan. It's a kind of very thin line there between when do you cross over into cultural appropriation. That was sort of the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. now.
Okay.
Can you explain a Vudan or how?
Oh,
did I just
it's a
get that?
practitioner of voodoo.
Okay, so
Oh.
we did get that. Okay, cool.
That was right.
Great. And Del, seriously, thank you for joining us tonight. You want to be here for next week for the whales,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
I have a
all right,
reserved
the
seat,
whales.
ladies and gentlemen, for next week.
We're gonna save the whales.
There be whales here.
We're gonna kill those walruses though.
Whoa. Spoiler.
Walruses.
Sorry, that's a Cheech and Chong joke. I hate myself for that.
Is stealing a starship an effective trope anymore?
Nowadays, not really. At the time,
Yeah, like in 3, sure, but like in Discovery, not so much.
Man, when this came out, that was so hard ass. You don't even know. People were so like completely ratified by that. They couldn't take it. Like stealing a starship. What kind of animal has Kirk become? Like,
and it was
disgusting.
nice to see them get
Is
at
that
least
Rave?
some of them
Hi,
get something to
Rave.
do.
Yeah, it was rape, sorry.
Basically, now it's just
New World. Yeah.
in Christmas Trek. It's just how you start a season is stealing
Yeah,
shit.
but there's no
That's it.
real stakes or effort. It's just like
No.
we're gonna steal the ship, hit the buttons, and you just fly away.
And I love how this is built up to. It's a heist, you know. It's not just like, oh, they're just flying it out of space dock and whatever.
Except after that one scene, Uhura's entire contribution was only in the novel.
Right.
I love it in Kurtzman Trek when they steal a ship and they do it by like posing as janitors and they have like the little mustaches on that you get from like a novelty store. It's very funny, but it's not good writing, but it's very funny. I like that.
All I'm picturing is that scene from The Office when Andy was pretending to be the drunk janitor, and he takes off his suit. He's just got the clothes underneath, but it's just a Starfleet captain's uniform.
So following up on that, was it necessary for Uhura to put not Tom Cruise into the closet?
I'm sorry, I'm caught in like, we're casting for a Tom Cruise type, but we don't really want Tom Cruise.
Totally not Nick Locarno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't... how is this not Tom Cruise?
Because he's got to go back in the closet.
It's like Tom Cruise if
And he
was a
won't come
Kennedy.
out of the
Closet?
closet. Tom Cruise in the closet, too.
Pull out my gun.
Like,
I I do like the whole conversation leading up to it, though. Like, I like how strong it is, and he's just like dumbfounded by it. Like, it's funny.
I do
If this was
enjoy
today,
like Ahura holding the weapon though. I do like it. I do like that when she sticks up the guy. It's a cool moment, but like it feels unnecessary to like because what's the point of putting him in the closet if you're already on the transporter pad?
Yeah,
I think it
and
was
they
just
could.
a cool moment to like make Uhura look a little bit more powerful and a little less submissive.
if this
They
was
also
made
could
today,
just-
it would have been the end credit scene.
Yeah.
Like after the credits, he would have been. Can I come out now? Hello.
No.
I'm in the closet too.
They could have just made him like cool and let them do it. You know, they could have. He could have joined them on their adventure, but no, I
That
guess he
is some
wasn't.
hair.
If they needed a red shirt, they should have just brought him along. Like, we need some
Yeah.
for the mission.
They could treat him like Elon treats one of his kids.
Ooh.
Like a
I'm
bullet
not
shield.
there.
Use him as a
No,
shield.
Dustin. My lawyer is advising me to say that I did not agree with that point you made there, Dustin.
Oh, well, he's using him as a bulletproof vest. So I'll double
Sure.
down. We got 4 minutes, 5 questions left. Let's see what we can get through. Did we know David long enough for his death to carry sufficient emotional weight?
No.
Yeah, that's
Only
why.
through Shatner's performance.
Yeah, Shatner was the one who had to cement that, which I think is why he repeated, "You Klingon bastard, you kill my son," so many times. Because we essentially knew David for about the length of a movie, even though he was in 2 of them. And
Yeah.
honestly, not all that well. Besides, he didn't like the military, and then he was proud to be Kirk's son.
And then, oops, proto matter. Sorry.
Whoops.
I think he mattered about as much as Picard's son.
Well, I was just gonna
Who
go
wasn't
there about
actually
Jack
his son?
Crusher.
Oh wait, which one?
Oh yeah, Jack for the rock
The fake
climbing
one or
Not
the
the
real
Wesley.
one?
Which one or the real one?
I think like what it was meant to convey was the loss of the ability to get to know him. That was where the grief was coming from. But yeah, like as an audience, it's not as gratifying for someone you barely know to die.
You guys brought up the proto matter. I'm going to try and bang this out as quickly as I can. Savick has this whole thing about like, oh, you use proto matter. How many people died because of your... what does the proto matter in there have to do with that? Like, he made it, so because he made it, people died, and all this controversy. Whether he'd use proto matter or not, I don't understand what that has to do with it. I just wanted to get that in there.
I was wondering if maybe it took lives to like cultivate proto matter at all. You know, like maybe it's like an illegal mining thing and it takes like hundreds of lives, like imprisoned lives. But they give you no clue for that, so that's just speculation.
It feels more like the omega molecule or something where it's so volatile and unpredictable that it's not supposed to be used.
I think if they were gonna kill Savick, Nadia, they'd have to go with the pregnancy thing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, that's right.
So the only other, we've got a few questions, but we have time for really one more. How would a re-engineered, a reignited Spock know the Vulcan language?
Hmm.
Yeah, this one doesn't make much
Genetic
sense to
memory.
me.
The only answer I can think of is Savick.
Because of their like Ponfar
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah,
But
okay.
she was speaking that to him when he was a child
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So it's like how
Though
would
he doesn't
even...
respond, so I mean maybe he just understands like the gesturing. I don't know.
Who knows?
So then I guess I'll try and get one more in here. What happened to Maltz
Universal
at the
Translator?
end?
Still waiting for Kirk.
He got called to a chess tournament and had to go.
He's the same place as Narek is from the end of Picard
Yes.
season 1.
Maybe they just stash him on Vulcan forever.
It's
Do
a really
Vulcans
important
have
work to do,
prisons?
and
Because like the last time you see him is like Kirk says that he's gonna kill him, and then he's like, "Never mind, I'm not gonna kill you," and that's it. That's the last you see of him. Like, what
I'm not
happened
going
to
to
him?
kill him. What's the thing from Princess Bride? I'm not going to kill you today. Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe they accidentally leave him back in the 80s, didn't realize he was still on the ship, just wandered off.
yeah, eventually found work at a courthouse in New York.
See, he could also be an end credits scene. He could also be a little jokey end credits thing.
I'd want him to be
And
going
the
down a
idea-
lazy river in like a little tube with some beer on a littler tube next to him, just kind of floating along, going, that's what I want for the end credits.
I love that it's John Larroquette, and like when he did this, he was largely unknown. But by the time the movie came out, season 1 of Night Court had already come out,
Yep.
and people had already started to get to like him and know him. So I find that pretty interesting.
Okay, so that's why he's slathered all over the posters. That makes sense. They were getting that John Larroquette fame to the advertising.
All right, so we are through an hour here, so let's switch to our out of 10s for this movie. I feel like this is just above the median for me. Out of 14 movies, this is like number, 6 from the top. It's pretty good, but that Pon Farr scene really brings it down for me. So I give it a 5.5.
Yeah, I agree with Nadia. I give it a 6. It's entertaining. It's okay. The pond farm scene is not necessary. I also like the amount of risk that Kirk is taking in order to bring back Spock. I do wish that we got a little bit more payoff in terms of consequences for that. It's like, because in the next movie that this sort of like insubordination is not addressed. So anyhow, I would say a solid 6. And Scotty has some good one-liners in here.
I would say I'd probably bump it up to a 6.5. One of the things I do really appreciate this movie, even though it's not as good, in my opinion, as the one that came before it or the one that's going to come after it, but it does form a pseudo trilogy. And I really like the fact that they started to utilize these movies to tell an ongoing story instead of just telling a brand new disconnected thing like from the motion picture to Wrath of Khan. They were, for the most part, you probably wouldn't even know they were in the same universe if you didn't know anything about Star Trek. So I like that they kept sort of an ongoing movie story, even to the point where it's kind of brought up again in Star Trek 6. So that gives it a little bonus point just because it's a nice touch that they're keeping it in the family, I guess you could say.
The way I rated it as a movie is if I went over to my friend's house and they said, we're going to watch 3, I'm going to give it a 6 because I'd probably say yes. It's not like my favorite movie by far, but I don't want to tear my eyeballs out either. So I'm going to give it a 6.
I'm going to be a little more generous than my previous compatriots and say I want to give it a 7.5 because I actually think it's entertaining and wild enough that it really merits a couple of good watches just to take in like some of the weird absurdity of things that happen and how fast things happen. It has good performances. In fact, I think it has one of Shatner's better performances, and he shows a certain little bit of subtlety here and there that he isn't showing in the previous films, along with grasping the comedy a little better. I like all the stuff with Bones, and Bones' performance feels really lived in and has subtlety in certain moments. The Pon Farr stuff is definitely awkward, and it probably does it no favors. But if you're so inclined, you can kind of laugh that off. It doesn't really technically make you watch anything like harmful, I guess, but the whole context around it is definitely terrible. So a lot of stuff like that's dragging it down, along with its time issues, and of course its villain can't compete with Khan because the personal stakes of Khan are so much more affecting than this like generic supervillain, which Chris Lloyd has given his all. That's fantastic, great performances, save a lot of this movie. Scott.
I'm going to agree with you as far as the score, Robbie. So yeah, this movie lives in the shadow of its predecessor, and it was never going to be as good as Wrath of Khan, but what it does really well. Yeah, Cruise, the whole interplay between Cruise and Kirk, I think they make that work really well because, again, it's never going to be the same as Kirk and Khan. And you're talking about two freaking masters there with a lot of history trying to outsmart each other. But I love the stuff between them, and the idea of McCoy holding Spock's Katra. I do like that a lot, actually, considering when they bring it back. We got to see the Enterprise explode. Not really big on Kirk's son so soon, or fingering things. They say you have people that say the odd numbered Star Trek movies are bad and the even numbered ones are good. This is a good movie. I say this one definitely breaks that trend. So yeah, 7.5.
Wow, nice.
Well, I was waiting for Kirk to give his score, but
Kirk's gonna give it, bastard! You killed my son.
Speaking of scores, just a couple of final things. It's a good musical score, but out of the first three movies, I think this is the worst. Like, it's serviceable, but it's not as memorable as Wrath of Khan or even the motion picture, because the motion picture, the score is the only thing holding it together for me, honestly. One of the few things that I really learned from watching two different commentaries on this was that this is the last time you see a Star Trek or a Starfleet baseball cap until Enterprise.
Oh
wow.
Just an interesting, weird little tidbit.
Yeah.
You don't see baseball caps very often, and you won't see it again until the second episode of Enterprise.
I also really enjoyed the collars on the bridge of the Enterprise after they heist it. And also Sulu's cape when they're doing the jailbreak. The swishing made my queer heart so happy.
I would really like to point out the sound mix, because sometimes when you hear them talking, you get such incredible echo, like you're in the room with them if you're listening through headphones. The production side of this film really held it up in a lot of ways for such a small budget.
Mostly. The only thing production-wise I'll say that I really didn't like is this goddamn matte painting. It's one of the worst in Star Trek for me.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Niners. But that wasn't a Starfleet.
Yeah, that wasn't a Starfleet thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Buck Bokai earlier on, but yeah.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about the Niner stuff, but yeah, it's not official anyway. All right, well, let's get out of here. Del, seriously, hey, thanks for joining in at the end, man. We'd love to see you. It's been a while.
I'm reserving a seat for next week.
We can't wait to get into the whales next week. I know we've got a lot of opinions, from worst Star Trek movie to best Star Trek movie and everything in between. So I can't wait to see how this pans out. I think we're going to have a much more heated discussion on that one. So I would like to thank you guys for all showing up and doing this thing today, and for all of you that tuned in. So until we see you again, live long.